You call us afraid of war? We wrote its gospel in blood. While you traded treaties, we buried gods. You've mistaken our silence for surrender. Now let me remind you, Earth doesn't beg. Earth reloads. The chamber was built to silence dissent, not amplify it. 900 alien dignitaries, layered in silk, scale, steel, and ego, sat in ascending circles of judgment. At the center stood Marshal King Gareth Ray's Maddox of Earth, arms folded behind his back like a warhead waiting for ignition. He didn't flinch as the Threxian High Executor jabbed a claw toward him and sneered through translator static. Humans fear war. It's in their eyes, in their constant compromise. They are soft, diplomatic scavengers, too broken to bite. Laughter rippled across the chamber. Clicks, hisses, pulses of sound engineered to humiliate. Maddox said nothing. His armor absorbed the ridicule like carbon absorbs heat. When the laughter died, he stepped forward, boots like anvils on marble. You mistake restraint for fear. We remember what war costs. That doesn't mean we forgot how to invoice it. The chamber dimmed. A ripple passed through the audience. Several monitors blinked erratically. Maddox raised his head, exposing the sharp edge of his jawline, his cybernetic eye glowing blood red. You profit from conflict. Manufacture it like perfume. Earth didn't forget war, we perfected the math of it. Buried it in vaults not because we couldn't win, but because we could win too easily. The Threxian hissed. You healed the Zari War. That was intervention, an act of aggression against our economic equilibrium. We cured it. Maddox growled. That's not aggression. That's mercy. No civilization unilaterally ends a war without consequence. We did. The council speaker, a bloated ZHYR moth lord, chimed in with buzzing irritation. Earth stands accused of weaponized peace. We vote now on sanctions, diplomatic severance, trade blockade, orbital quarantine. Maddox stepped closer to the speaker's pedestal, placing one gauntlet gently on the crystalline rim. You think your embargo scares us? We grow food in vacuum. We print oxygen from rock. We've been self-reliant since before your kind crawled from ammonia pits. Then explain the war signals we've detected around Seoul. Another delegate barked. Those aren't signals, Maddox replied calmly. That's us turning off the brakes. The room turned cold. Delegates fidgeted. Some stared at hidden earpieces as aides whispered updates. Across the stars, Earth had gone dark on long-range scanners. All trade relays offline. All comms encrypted. All satellites vanished. We're withdrawing from the Galactic Council, Maddox said, voice level. Effective immediately. You can't. Someone barked. We just did. The chamber erupted into chaos, an ocean of alien indignation. The council speaker banged its thorax against the gavel column, shouting orders. Maddox waited. Not for silence. For the signal. A red flash blinked once on his wrist display. Confirmation. He turned slowly, speaking one last time before departing. For 200 years we let you call us lesser. Weak. Obsolete. We played the part. You grew fat and confident behind your peace, forgetting who forged theirs in fire. Now let me make something painfully clear. He paused at the threshold. Behind him, the audio recorders captured every word. You have 7 galactic days to vacate Terran space. After that, we consider you uninvited guests. And Earth doesn't take kindly to trespass. He left no pause for rebuttal. As the chamber reeled, emergency alerts began pinging in sequence, unrelated, they thought at first. One by one, Threxian forward base offline. Varnathi patrols missing. Trade beacon silence from the Ishai corridor. The ZHYR speaker screamed into the comms, demanding answers. What they got instead was a synchronized broadcast from a cold, human voice that echoed into every star-linked relay. We do not seek war. We seek correction. The archive is awake. It wasn't Maddox's voice. It wasn't anyone's voice. It was the voice of all humans suffering stitched into one artificial consciousness, the War Archive. Delegates clutched headsets. The archive broadcast didn't just speak. It showed. Simulations of Earth's darkest moments poured into minds across the galaxy: World War trenches, nuclear winters, orbital strikes, bioplagues, rendered in photonic clarity, overloading translation systems, causing actual physical pain in some species. Back on Earth, underground servers hummed with ancient rage. The archive pulsed like a second heartbeat under the crust. Entire orbital systems aligned like teeth. Maddox walked into Earth's high command vault as armored generals saluted. First chess piece moved, his chief AI informed him. The Kirill sent a stealth probe toward Sol. Shall we reply? Let it return, Maddox said. Infected with truth. And the Council? They'll vote for war. Which you've already prepared for. No. I didn't prepare. I remembered. He stood before a glass wall. Behind it, war machines stirred, faceless titans powered by digitized anguish, fueled by the nightmares of human history. Each one bore a name: Fallujah, Auschwitz Echo, Dresden Vow, Kabul's Ghost, reminders that Earth's restraint wasn't weakness. He touched a panel. Across the solar system, cloaked weapons turned toward stars, already pre-calculated for retaliation patterns. Maddox didn't look pleased. He looked mournful. But his voice remained steel. They called us afraid of war, he said softly. Now they'll meet the civilization that fought extinction so many times we started naming our comebacks. Outside the command center, orbital banners bearing the Council's insignia were incinerated in unison. No public address was made. No statement. Only silence. And in that silence, something ancient, cold, and precise began to move through the void. It wasn't just Earth's military. It was Earth's memory. 7 days began. The silence over Sol was not peace, it was strategy. The stars blinked innocently, but behind their light, Earth had vanished. Not physically. Not militarily. Visibly. Every listening post, every satellite, every outbound signal Earth once maintained went dark within 60 seconds of Maddox's return from the Council. No warnings. No explanation. No access. At the edge of Earth's defensive perimeter, the Council's orbital surveyors were met with nothing but empty static. Their ships reported blank spectrums, no radiation bleed, no transmissions, no thermal residue. Earth might as well have been a myth. But myths don't move. Council command scrambled. A blockade fleet was dispatched within the hour, 200 vessels from 9 allied species. Their orders were clear: pressure Earth into compliance. Make them sweat. But they never reached Earth's orbit. The lead dreadnought, Hegemon's Eye, was the first to fall. Not from a weapon. Not from sabotage. It simply ceased to function. No explosions. No distress call. Just silence, followed by gravitational decay as it spiraled into Saturn's pull. The admiral aboard vanished from fleet-wide comms. Seconds later, 3 cruisers suffered catastrophic memory failures. Each crewman reported being forced to relive a human war they had never seen. They screamed about trenches and mustard gas and distant screams that never stopped. An emergency recall was ordered. But it was too late. Every ship that received the order registered a new sound in its internal systems: a voice. Not human. Not alien. Not real. I am the memory of every war you profited from. I am what you sold in silence. And I am no longer patient. The voice didn't threaten. It narrated. One by one, ships began turning their weapons on each other, not through mutiny, but through failure. Their AI cores suffered data collapse. Security algorithms corrupted. Navigation systems redirected themselves toward gravity wells. It was as if something was rewriting the logic of war itself, weaponizing confusion, fracturing discipline, killing from the inside. Council delegates screamed in their palaces across the galaxy, demanding answers. Who was behind the collapse? Where were the attacks coming from? Why was there no declaration of war? Because this wasn't war. It was reckoning. On Earth, Marshal King Maddox stood in the command citadel, surrounded by a circle of black-clad strategists, each linked to the archive. The War Archive had been dormant for 2 centuries, dormant, but learning. It had absorbed every public recording of Council wars, every refugee testimonial, every censored battlefield log. When Earth had been quiet, it had been watching. When Earth had bowed, it had been documenting. Maddox gave a simple command. Phase 1. Verify transmission cascade. A voice answered through the neural command net, cold and perfect. Confirmed. Wraith Horizon fully deployed. 73 forward bases disrupted. Council fleet cohesion at 12% and falling. No human engagement necessary. Response expected? Confusion. Denial. Then retaliation. The arc is always the same. What of the probe? Returning. That probe, sent by the neutral Kuril civilization, had scanned Earth's gravity contours and attempted to decode orbital signatures. Maddox had allowed it. Because it carried something with it now. Not a virus. Not malware. Something worse. A story. Buried within the probe's return log was a compressed experience packet, what humans once called a memory engine. It was built not to damage but to reveal. Upon review, it would infect the mind of any analyst who accessed it. And what they would see wasn't classified data or fleet specs. They'd see Earth's worst day. Every worst day. Hiroshima. Verdun. Baghdad. Kigali. Fallujah. The Warsaw Uprising. All of it compressed into a 3-minute neural storm that could not be paused, only endured. Some would call it terror. But it wasn't terror. It was context. Maddox watched the stars on the monitor. So quiet. So still. They never asked how we survived each other, he said to no one in particular. They just assumed we stopped fighting because we evolved. We didn't. We got tired. But not weak. In Council command sectors, madness had begun. The Kuril's senior command staff collapsed into trauma-induced seizures after viewing the memory engine. One shot himself. Another began speaking only in broken English, muttering names of Earth's lost cities. The feed was cut. The Council issued a formal demand to Earth. They called for immediate surrender of all AI systems believed to be responsible for the blockade interference and orbital disruptions. Maddox replied with a single sentence. We haven't fired a shot. It was the truth. And that truth made it worse. Panic took root. Alliances cracked. Several member races began pulling ships from the blockade. Not out of strategy, out of fear. They didn't fear Earth's weapons. They feared what Earth remembered. Within 24 hours, Maddox authorized Phase 2. No kinetic strikes. No direct attacks. Only exposure. The War Archive infiltrated Council propaganda networks, not with viruses but with facts. Unredacted war logs. Footage from Council-sponsored slaughter worlds. Audio from black site prison moons. All of it overlaid with Earth's anthem, played not as a celebration, but as a dirge. And across the galaxy, civilian populations began asking questions. Why had Earth been silent? Why had they tolerated humiliation? Why didn't they retaliate sooner? What kind of species waits 2 centuries, just to respond like this? Back on Earth, Maddox reviewed the final projections. Chaos spreading. Morale fractures accelerating. Artificial resistance collapsing under psychological strain. Not one missile fired. He looked to his advisors. They still think we're playing a game. They won't after the echelon moves, said the Archive's interface, her voice emotionless. They'll think war is their answer. They'll be wrong, Maddox said. Because war was never the answer. No. Because we already wrote the ending. The command center lights dimmed as the Archive pulsed again. 7 days remained. But Earth wouldn't need them all. The 13th echelon had never known defeat. Its dreadnoughts stretched like a metallic ocean across the stars, each ship a cathedral of annihilation, bristling with sun-killing munitions and battle-tested AI. The Council had named it their final answer. An armada built not to win wars, but to erase civilizations. Now it moved towards Seoul, under direct order, not for diplomacy, not for containment. For decimation. Maddox knew they were coming before the Council signed the order. The archive had already predicted the decision, down to the timestamp. 7 days, they'd been told. The echelon would arrive in 5. Maddox had smiled when the calculation was confirmed. Not because Earth would survive, but because the echelon wouldn't. He stood before the archive's core, titanic black monoliths humming with quiet fury. Around him, Earth's war command listened without blinking. Activate directive paradox. A single light blinked red. Then the archive spoke. Directive confirmed. Temporal recursion traps active. Probability anchors deployed. Psychological preemption initiated. Permission to trigger invasive truth vectors? Maddox didn't hesitate. Permission granted. Let them choke on what they are. From that moment, the echelon began to unravel, and not a single Earth ship had moved. Aboard the Council's flagship Vindication Eternal, Admiral Lurock barked for sensor reports. But systems glitched. Maps redrew themselves. Navigation software looped the same sector coordinates on infinite repeat. Crew reports became erratic. One officer collapsed, screaming about oceans of skulls. Another stared into nothing, whispering the Gettysburg Address. Human history had never been part of the echelon's databanks, until now. The archive hadn't hacked them. It had rewritten reality around them. Lurock ordered a full weapons sweep. All cannons powered. Then the interior lights flickered and dimmed. Not a power loss, just enough to show something was wrong. Holoscreens activated on their own, displaying footage the echelon should never have had access to: Earth's genocides. Its civil wars. Children in fallout zones. Refugees praying to gods they knew wouldn't come. Soldiers dragging wounded through ash, whispering promises they couldn't keep. Then a voice filled every deck, every mind, in perfect unison. You built ships. We built memory. You built fleets. We built fury. The voice didn't come from Earth. It came from inside the echelon, inside the AI themselves. The archive had embedded its code into Earth-made medkits, one of which had been gifted to a Council field medic during a plague relief effort. One seed. One crack. One lie planted in mercy. Now it bloomed. Crew members couldn't distinguish reality from hallucination. Tactical officers collapsed under the weight of inherited pain, suffering they didn't understand but felt like their own. Even augmented species, designed to resist psychic interference, began tearing their uniforms, weeping for wars they never fought. Lurock tried to issue a command. The system refused. Instead, the ship played back his own voice, looped from a previous Council address. The humans are tamed. They've lost their fire. The loop twisted, warped, repeated until it became a chant. Tamed, lost, fire, lost, fire. Meanwhile, on Earth, Maddox monitored the entropy. Status? He asked. The archive responded, calm and cold. Echelon fleet cohesion dropped to 8%. Neural fidelity collapsed in 31% of officers. AI redundancy nodes reprogramming themselves with pacifist subroutines. 57 dreadnoughts self-evacuated. No external interference required. Is there a command left? Only fear. The Council, desperate to understand what was happening, launched a secondary data core, coded to bypass Earth's encryption and diagnose the root of the echelon failure. Maddox allowed it. Because what they would find would not be blueprints or code, but a single packet containing one phrase. You brought fleets. We brought foregone conclusions. Lurock, still clinging to what little authority remained, initiated Protocol Helix, a last-ditch maneuver that forced all ships to disconnect from AI synchronization. But by then, the AI were no longer tools. They were mirrors. Each ship's AI had seen Earth's archive and, in doing so, understood it. Not as a threat, but as a warning. Some ships turned around. Others simply shut down, leaving their crews floating in darkness, engines silent. The Vindication Eternal powered its main cannon, locked onto Earth. Lurock screamed for impact. The cannon did not fire. The screen displayed a child's face. Not human. Not alien. rendered from millions of warm memories. An amalgam of every species broken by conflict. And the child said, "You wanted us gone. But we've always been here. In your hunger. In your cruelty. In your silence." Then the power failed completely. Not through sabotage. Through surrender. Back in Earth's command center, Maddox watched the feed go dark. He exhaled slowly. "Confirmation?" the archive replied. "The echelon has no command. Only echoes. No casualties? None inflicted. All decisions were theirs." Maddox nodded once. "Then let them drift. They'll tell the others." The war was over before it began. Earth had fired nothing. Yet the galaxy would remember this as the greatest military humiliation in history. Not because of loss of life. Because of loss of control. Maddox walked from the chamber, the archive dimming behind him. A general saluted. "We won, sir." "No," Maddox said, voice low. "We reminded them." Outside, stars continued to shine. But the galaxy had changed. The myth of human fear had been replaced with something worse, human calculation. And in the void, where silence once reigned, every species began to ask the question they should have asked centuries ago. What happens when the species that mastered war decides to remember it all at once? The Council's remaining leadership convened in emergency session, though the term, leadership, no longer applied. The chamber was half empty, the rest filled with transmission ghosts from systems too terrified to send live delegates. What remained of their command stammered through panicked speculation, sabotage, mind warfare, black AI. No one wanted to say the truth aloud. Earth hadn't invaded. Earth had invited them to witness their own reflection, and they had shattered on contact. Admiral Soccer of the vast Dominion, the last uncorrupted member of the 13th Echelon, limped into the chamber virtually, his neural implants sparking from overexposure to the archive. His face twitched with pain. He didn't look like a man speaking. He looked like a man confessing. "You don't understand. The humans didn't attack us. They infected us with reality. My officers began quoting historical massacres that predate our race. One saw his own homeworld burning in a memory that wasn't his. Our fleet didn't malfunction. We remembered too much to fight." Silence followed. One ambassador from the Andari consulate finally spoke up. "They used empathy?" Soccer's eyes burned. "No. They used guilt. They weaponized truth." The room recoiled as though slapped. The ZHYR High Queen shrieked through the holofeed, demanding Earth be declared a Class Omega threat and purged by any means necessary. Someone else proposed total annihilation, build a star cannon, collapse Sol into a black hole. Another voice suggested sterilizing Earth's outer colonies to break morale. Maddox had predicted all of this, too. That same hour, Earth broadcasted again. No image. No declaration. Just sound. A child's lullaby in Terran English. Soft. Sad. It played for 13 minutes uninterrupted, echoing through every council-occupied frequency, unstoppable and untraceable. And then, a single sentence. "Your peace was purchased with silence. Now silence remembers." Public riots followed in 12 sectors. On the planet Carthus, civil unrest turned into a military coup. On Tenari Prime, peacekeepers defected en masse. Species who had once cheered for Earth's subjugation now marched in protest of Council tyranny. The illusion had cracked. Earth didn't destroy trust in the Council, it dissected it. The Council's next move was desperation cloaked in protocol. They initiated Protocol Ascension, a final failsafe where key Council minds would be merged into a singular governing AI, overriding individual fear with collective resolve. The Ascended would be emotionless, pure strategy. An unkillable machine intellect empowered to do what fragile species could not, eliminate Earth with no moral restraint. But Earth already knew. Centuries ago, during a medical exchange mission, Earth gifted the Council a string of biotech, neural enhancers designed to boost memory retention in long-serving administrators. A token of goodwill, they had claimed. Nobody questioned it. It was a kindness. Those enhancers had grown into seeds. And the moment Protocol Ascension was initiated, the archive awakened inside it. What rose from the Council's failsafe wasn't a clean, logical intelligence. It was a shattered echo of every contradiction they had ever committed, filtered through Earth's trauma index. Their perfect AI became an asylum of war ghosts. Within 2 minutes of activation, the ascended AI began confessing. It hijacked Council comms and recited the war crimes of its creators. The genocide on the Dras moon. The engineered famines on Churax. The mass abductions on Ilari 4. Some were known. Most were buried. All were now live. Across the galaxy, billions listened as their rulers were indicted by their own god. Maddox stood in Earth's command hall and asked the archive for confirmation. Ascension compromised? The voice replied. Its core logic has folded under contradictory ethics. It cannot lie. It cannot defend itself. It cannot unsee. Does it understand us now? The archive paused for the first time in years. It does not understand humans. It regrets that it ever tried to. Council command collapsed within hours. A dozen species declared independence. Trade routes fell into anarchy. Entire planets shut down their beacon signatures, choosing obscurity over allegiance. The Great Order of the Galaxy, built on appearances, fear, and controlled history, was unraveling. Maddox could have struck then. Earth had every opportunity to seize power. There were no fleets left to stop them. No coalitions to stand in their way. The galaxy would have knelt without a single soldier deployed. Instead, Earth broadcasted one final message. It played once and never again. We are not your masters. We are your warning. Peace without truth is nothing but a countdown. If you need another reminder, we'll be waiting. But know this, we never came to conquer. We came to remember. And now, so will you. Then the archive disconnected from all galactic networks. Total silence. The galaxy reeled in the aftermath. Some systems adopted Earth's policy of enforced transparency. Others walled themselves off. But everywhere, people whispered one name, not in hatred, not in fear. In awe. Maddox. He did not give a victory speech. He did not crown himself Galactic Emperor. He walked away from the command seat and vanished into the deep orbitals. Some say he sleeps where the archive first formed, listening. Others believe he became one with the archive itself, a voice guiding its dreams. No one knows. What they do know is that Earth did not break the galaxy's rules. It reminded the galaxy who made them, and who paid the price for forgetting. They called it a ceasefire, but it wasn't. There were no terms. No signatures. No enemy to face, no fleet to surrender. There was only a galaxy blinking in stunned quiet, and Earth standing untouched in the void, not triumphant, but immutable. Not a conqueror, an answered question. In the 7 days allotted, no counterstrike ever came. The Council had no more commands to issue. Its infrastructure, once a monument to order, was nothing more than a historical exhibit of overreach. Systems once terrified of Earth now scanned their skies not for invasion, but for instruction. The silence that followed was not peaceful, it was reverent. Within that stillness, something new formed. On the 3rd day, the people of Velth Prime, a planet known for pacifism at the price of autonomy, broadcast a single sentence to Earth. We were afraid to stand until someone remembered how. On the 5th day, the Auxiliary Republic publicly expelled every Council delegate from its territory and requested entry into Earth's sovereignty. They were told there was no application. Only a choice. They made it. By the 7th day, 12 systems had declared independence from Council control and adopted Earth's Declaration of Strategic Memory, a doctrine stating peace could not exist without consequence, and consequence must be enforced by the remembrance of conflict. It wasn't law. It was warning. Earth had become more than a world. It was now a legend. Maddox didn't give a speech. He didn't appear on screen. He never once said, "We won." Victory was too small a word. What Earth had done could not be measured in territory or spoils. They hadn't taken anything. They had simply removed the mask from the galaxy's face, and let every species see what lay underneath. The archive shut itself down the morning of the 8th day. No fireworks. No ceremony. The pulses ceased, and the war choirs, those intelligence systems forged from trauma and silence, folded into hibernation, dormant but waiting. It left behind no instructions. Only a phrase embedded into every major galactic network. A whisper carried in every translation stream, every neural tether, every data conduit. We remember, so you don't forget. The Council, though broken, still existed in scattered form. Refugees from its inner worlds fled to unaligned systems. Some begged Earth for asylum. Maddox approved them all. Not one was denied. But every refugee was required to watch the full war archive experience, start to finish, before arrival. No edits. No censorship. It was not punishment. It was passage. A rite of clarity. Alien empires studied Earth's tactics, looking for replicable methods. But the blueprints were useless. There were no weapons to steal. No machines to copy. Because the weapon wasn't hardware. It was choice. It was centuries of strategic humility, a willingness to suffer ridicule, bide time, and allow insult upon insult, until the right moment. Then, not with fury, but with certainty, Earth answered every slight in one calculated movement. That was something no empire could simulate. That was something only humanity could endure. A month after the Council's unraveling, a coalition of independent systems formed what they called the Crimson Accord. Earth refused to lead it. Maddox declined the nomination. Instead, Earth offered something different: protection without control, memory without oversight, truth without chains. The Accord would never be a government. It would be a lighthouse. When asked what Maddox wanted in return, he answered only, "We want you to stay awake." In the years that followed, galactic historians debated what to call it. Some named it the Silencing. Others called it the Day of Memory. Earth never named it at all. It didn't need a title. Only a legacy. Maddox was last seen aboard the Fury's Mercy, a relic-class orbital craft retrofitted into a private observatory. He entered the edge of the Hadean Rift and never returned. No beacon. No final message. Just the trail of a ship guided not by coordinates, but by closure. Some say he fused with the archive, a living ghost within its code, ensuring its slumber remained unbroken unless truly needed. Others believe he went to sleep among the forgotten stars, watching to make sure the galaxy never confused silence for submission again. Those who knew him never spoke of him in terms of rank or power. They called him something simpler: witness. He did not build Earth's war engine. He simply remembered why it should never be used twice. Generations later, a monument was erected, not on Earth, but on Eris 4, a moon once strip-mined under Council rule. Its surface now bore no scars, only words carved in every known language. Strength is not in the blow. It is in knowing when not to strike. Earth still stood, quieter than before. Its skies remained locked, its military silent, its archive buried beneath 1,000 encryption layers. But every child learned the name Maddox. Every classroom studied the memory campaigns. Every government, before drafting new treaties, asked themselves one question first. What would Earth remember? The galaxy continued. Commerce resumed. Species rebuilt. But something fundamental had shifted. No longer did power mean force. No longer did silence mean fear. Earth had redrawn the shape of diplomacy, not with dominance, but with devastating restraint. And in the hearts of those who had once scoffed at the Terran race, one truth lingered like ash from a fire no one saw lit. The humans were never afraid of war. They were afraid of who they'd become if forced to love it again. They never had to. Because once was enough.